Hi Virgo, welcome to your end of March 2020 General Tarot update. It's Rena here. So I'm shuffling the cards and I like to mix it up whatever I feel intuitively. So I'm just going to pick the cards that I take the card on the top and the card at the bottom and then shuffle it again. Take the card at the top, maybe the card at the bottom, and do it that way. Okay. It's funny because we have a couple of swords which connect with air signs. So, and I did get the star card. So that's Aquarius. That's an air sign. The other air signs are Gemini. That's your, I don't want to say nemesis. It could be the person that you're very attracted to. But it, you know, Virgo and Gemini form a square, so there's always that tension. And there's, and then there's Libra. But I just want to say something very quickly about squares because my partner and I are both Sagittarians, which is another mutable sign like Virgo. And we both have our moons in Virgo too. And he has noted or noticed that a lot of his friends are Virgos, even though, you know, and I was telling him about the square. But, you know, this can create a lot of attraction because even though there's friction and there's irritation sometimes, like two different ways of looking at life, of doing things, there still is this commonality. And that for those of us who have the Virgo and the Sag and the Pisces and the Gemini is the mutability. So we have, they're called common signs, and they do, I read in a book, they call them the idea people, which makes sense to me too, because we like to, especially with I don't know about Pisces, but definitely the other three are very much into learning and communicating. And of course, you're ruled by Mercury, and so is Gemini. So there you go. Okay. The heart of the matter is the Knight of Wands. And this card is actually associated with Sagittarius, speaking of which. But I always associate it with Aries because of the, you know, Aries being the god, Mars is the god of war, the ruler of Aries, and I think of the soldier. And, you know, so if this is a person other than you, if this is not a facet of your personality, it can suggest a person who is hard to pin down. We're talking about double fire here. So this is a very sexy person. And sexy doesn't mean how they look. It's just that they carry themselves in a way. It's very hot-blooded. And I will go into Foreigner in a minute. But really, I mean, this idea of passion, of sexiness, of kind of that instability, that fire, that expansive energy that fire is all about, that kind of lights your fire. Now, you're very earthy, you're very grounded. And so these two elements are very different, and they kind of clash because of it. However, they do say that opposites attract. So it's certainly not the case that you cannot be attracted to somebody of the fire element. And I'm just kind of generalizing it with this kind of situation. But with the Knight, we're talking about somebody who is very youthful or immature. And it can be either one. It could be chronologically that you're interested in somebody younger than you, but just in general, I don't like to limit it to chronological age. And the thing is that this can be a pattern with some Virgos, that they tend to be attracted to the person that will not commit. And that in and of itself is an interesting pattern because it can speak to certain things that are going on within yourself. And if I look at somebody's total information, you can often see the person maybe have a sun in Virgo and have the moon in Sagittarius themselves or Aries, and be very desirous of freedom, being very afraid of being kind of claustrophobic when it comes to committed relationships for fear of the loss of your emotional freedom. And remember too that Virgo is the sign of the hermit. So you're able to go it alone. You're not one of those people that's like, oh, I need, unless you have some Libra, which you could, like Venus or Mars in Libra, then you might be, or the moon in a more emotionally dependent sign. You might be a little bit more likely to want relationships. So this can be a kind of a conundrum. And then there's a possibility that this is reflecting yourself in a newfound attitude that you have, where you are willing to venture. I don't know how many people would agree with me about this, how many Virgo sun signs would agree if they consider themselves cautious, because I do think that earth signs tend to be pragmatic, and that in and of itself can be seen as a form of caution, of like saying, oh, is this a wise thing to do, and thinking before you act and things like that. However, and this is also because I have, having the moon in Virgo, I have that side to me that, kind of likes to look before I leap, you know what I mean? But with the Knight of Wands, you may be kind of like, I'm not going to say reckless, but you may be like letting go of that for some reason. So when we look at the past position, we see the Five of Wands, and the first thing I think of is conflict, and multiple people in this conflict. So if it's like a relationship, like if this is a person that you're dating, the Knight of Wands, you may feel like you have to fight for this person's affection, and that might not sit well with you. If this is a workplace situation, you may feel it's a dog-eat-dog situation, and you might say, I can do better all by myself. I don't need this kind of drama. I see drama with the Five of Wands. I'm sorry, I'm blowing my sage here, trying to stoke it back up. The higher message is the Star card. This is a card of healing, and this is a card of faith. It's the belief of, which is the belief in unseen forces. So not just whatever is in front of you. And this is, of course, with the earth element, something that is quite commonplace, where the person tends to take their inspiration or feel good about something based upon whether it's in front of them. The more that you can get comfortable with that time before something has manifested, I think that is a real turning point, and a great way to get into that. It's funny, it's called Getting Into the Vortex. That's what Abraham Hicks, Esther Hicks, talks about, and I've begun listening to that again, and it's very, very inspirational. Even if you don't understand everything or even agree with everything, it can still be quite a boost on a deep level. So something like that can give you the feeling of possibilities is to me so important, because as somebody who has a lot of earth in my personal planets, I am like that myself. I am, there's that saying, I'll believe it when I see it. And the late Dr. Wayne Dyer had a book that was called I'll See It When I Believe It. And that to me is what the Star card represents. What crosses you, or the challenge, is the Three of Swords. And this is, if you're in a personal relationship and you feel like this, maybe it feels very tenuous or on again, off again. I guess that's kind of like being tenuous, but it doesn't feel solid. It doesn't feel settled. The Three of Swords kind of indicates that you know that something isn't happening with this, but you can't just cut it off. And that will, even if it's not like, the end all be all, that can kind of like drain you. So you want to assess this. And the one thing I didn't say too, for personal relationships, is you may find that you're just kind of like fighting with this person a lot. And even though you may have a great physical chemistry or attraction, it's not enough to sustain the relationship, and it creates drama rather than passion. And there's a difference. One is kind of chaotic and not productive, and the other is very inspirational. And so the Three of Swords, being in this relationship, can leave you feeling rejected because of this person's behavior. But it's almost like you're volunteering for this kind of behavior. And, you're doing so for no reason other than maybe the familiarity or something like that, or wanting some kind of relationship, perhaps. If this is a work situation, this may have been another thing that you felt that you were not as good as somebody else. That sense of rejection. Maybe this was based on some kind of promotion that you didn't get. But when I look at the Five of Wands, let's look at this card once more. There's a game called Let's You and Him Fight. In games people play, that was a big kind of a pop psychology book that came out, I think, in the 60s. And what it means is that some people who cannot really communicate and deal with others in a straightforward manner, they use games to substitute for that intimacy or that kind of direct communication. And one thing that they do, and this can be like the boss, for instance, the authority figure, is that rather than inspire their workers, they get them to compete against each other so that it puts them back in a former place when they were young, like sibling rivalry, for instance. And it's so easy to do that because people have a deep wound with that often. It's something that's popular or, commonplace enough that it can, you can easily manipulate people with that. And that is problematic because that's not positive motivation. That's negative motivation, and it creates a negative vibration in the workplace. But it happens, and so to me, it's like you're realizing it. You may not realize it on the conscious level, but you don't want it, and you're willing to take a chance. And that's what the Knight of Wands is about, taking a chance. What's coming in is the Ace of Swords, and this is just kind of like going along with what I'm saying. It's gaining clarity. And, now that I look at this particular thing, it's funny. So this is showing it in the air. Of course, these are air signs with swords. But I think the Rider-Waite deck shows like a murky swamp that the sword is emerging from. But basically what this is about is like being able to see the truth. In this deck, they're showing clouds. So it's kind of like cutting through that confusion that comes about when you're told one thing, but you know that another is true. And it's like the clarity that you gain that makes you able to move forward. And that's what the ace is. It's the beginning of something. So it's like the beginning able to choose new thoughts, able to choose new realities, to create new realities from choosing new thoughts and choosing new actions as a result of those thoughts. The outcome is a card which is funny because it's almost kind of a little bit contradictory in the sense that the moon can sometimes indicate that there is something that is not being revealed that is present and that will come out at some point. I mean, that's not all that the moon represents, though. The moon rules the sign of Cancer, so it could be a timing card on that level, or any kind of full moon especially, or new moon, I suppose. We have the astrological new year in this time frame of the end of March, and that is in Aries. And for you, Virgo, this falls in your 8th house, which is the house of, well, there's a lot of things. It's the house of death, but it doesn't have to be physical death, the house of transformation. So this is a new moon. So this is like your regeneration, coming, this new self. And also, this is the house of secrets. Sometimes, the 8th house or the 12th house, so something may be revealed. At any full moon, I'm sorry, I take that back, because I was looking at the moon thinking of the full moon, but the new moon is more about new beginnings. The full moon is more about revealing secrets, so I'll hold off on that. But it's funny because the 8th house is a lot about kind of what is below the surface. And I guess that it's possible that you're willing to start tackling that, which is great because it can show you your motivations for why you do what you do. So the other thing about the moon card is it's a card of creativity, and it's also, if it is about deception, this can be even self-deception or another's deception. Because I have the Ace of Swords, I have a feeling that you will learn about what's really going on for another person. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the cards right here, and I'm just going to pick the one that comes up. And I get the Fool card, another major arcana card. So new beginnings, wiping the slate clean, and on a new journey. And yes, I should have kind of connected the dots there, because another thing too is that earlier this month you had a full moon in your sign. So perhaps that was a time of endings for you in some way, and now you're kind of going on a new journey. Interestingly, the Fool card connects with the planet Uranus because it's really about doing your own thing. And the Star card, the higher message, is Aquarius, which is ruled by Uranus. So, the individuality. And with that Five of Wands, some people may be trying to draw you into their drama because, when you think about this in the collectivist sense of the word, I was just saying this to my partner yesterday. Reality is an agreed upon delusion. I didn't make that up. I read that somewhere. Or I don't know, illusion, delusion. But, there's so much truth in that. And if you refuse to go along with the program, you don't buy into that reality. Even if like just about everyone is reacting to whatever is out there and they are doing certain things, you may say, that's not my reality, so I'm not going to do those things. I'm not afraid. I'm not, nothing has changed in my life because I'm apart from that. And so the drama that tries to suck us in, you can kind of reboot yourself with the Fool card, and go on your new path. And so anyway, Virgo, I hope that you enjoyed this. If you'd like a private reading, please check the link below, click on the link below. I am mainly an astrologer. I do the tarot because it's very popular, and it's a great format for the internet because it's very, you can really touch upon a lot of things. But my first love and my main type of reading is, using the natal chart for relationship readings or natal chart interpretations and transit readings. So my website is rainandmoonastrology.com. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.